Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Create Invent podcast. I'm here with my lovely co-host, as usual, Jeremy Cook. I'm Pat Regan, and we are joined today by Stephen Hawes, who is making a fantastic open source pick and place. Drops your electronics components on a PCB machine. It's really cool. Welcome, Stephen. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, and Stephen, now you're in Pittsburgh. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I live and work in Pittsburgh.
Live and work in Pittsburgh, and I believe you've just started a new shop, right? Man, there's so much to get into with you, but just a little. No, it's fantastic. So you live in Pittsburgh. Your engineering background, I assume, or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have I majored in mechanical engineering, minored in computer science, but then ultimately was like, yeah, electronics is kind of the thing that I'm stoked on. So I pursued that during college and after college, not through like a formal academic path. And that was really where I was like, oh no, this is really where I want to spend my time. So I've got, bits of the big three is kind of how I think about it.
Yeah, no, I get that. My degree's in mechanical engineering as well. And, I don't know, cool. I was always so fascinated with just everything, to be honest. It's hard I just found it very hard to narrow down what I wanted to study. And I do feel like in the end, I feel like maybe mechanical engineering is maybe the most broad in a way, I guess the most,
yeah.
But, sometimes I think maybe I should have studied electrical engineering or computer science or whatever else. But
sure. I think that all the time, especially because the mechanical engineering school that I went to was like, we took classes that would really only be applicable if you were designing jet engines or like handling fluid flow through, some like industrial tubing and like not stuff I really wanted to apply. And like maybe by the time I got to a job where that would become necessary, we'll cross that bridge when I get to it, and I'll learn it at that point. I'm still glad I took them because it gave me a good understanding of like some of those fundamentals. But I felt like my program didn't even teach me CAD for mechanical engineering. I came out, all my CAD experience was self-taught by the time I graduated mechanical engineering. So like I felt like it didn't give me the foundation I was hoping it would, a nice broad foundation. But there were still good classes in there I really enjoyed.
Yeah. I think it was. I think doing a mechanical engineering degree was good. Whether it was the exact right thing. I mean, I know, I don't even know if it was quite offered when I went to it, but I know we had at least one guest on that had a mechatronics degree, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
Maybe I would have taken that if my college offered it, but
I probably would have too.
Yeah. But yeah, and I think I saw a Yukon symbol, so I guess you went to University of Connecticut, I assume, or maybe you just like
yeah, absolutely. I grew up there, and it was a good in-state tuition, and so I went for it, and it was good. It was a great college experience. I did learn a ton, and I had a lot of opportunities at the school, like so many wonderful things UConn provided for me. The degree was not my best choice. It was a good choice. I'm glad I did it, but it wasn't what I was hoping for. But so many other great things came from it. It was a great school experience for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I guess what we're talking about today is you made, or mostly what we're talking about today is your company. You do an open source printed circuit board assembly machine. Is that fair to say? You're making that
100%. Like that's pretty much how I describe it too. Is it's a machine that assembles a circuit board and puts all the little chips onto the blank PCB automatically.
And just to step back a few steps, a PCB is a printed circuit board, and basically this is something that you design. You can put components on there, and the circuit boards take electrons from one end of the board to another, from one component to another. Your machine does not make printed circuit boards, yet it takes circuit boards unassembled and actually plops the components on it, correct? So
exactly. Yeah, it's more of like, it's less of a prototyping tool. So there's a lot of great things out there for if you want to make a prototype, if you want to make 5 of something, you can order PCBs online, super cheap. You can buy the components from DigiKey. You can solder them with a soldering iron. You can make a few of them. But this is more of a tool for, let's say I want to make 100 of something or 1,000 of something, or like Jeremy for your Kickstarter, that kind of thing. Like being able to manufacture a whole bunch all in one fell swoop. You don't have to sit at your bench and hand solder all these things. You can get a tool that isn't, thousands and thousands of dollars, or like hire a company to do it for you. You could do it right there in-house and like handle it yourself for a lot less money.
That's amazing. And
Stephen, I'm going to ask you an important question that I realize we should have. And I know names have changed too, so I'm going to be confused. What is the name of your company, and what is your pick and place machine called?
So that's a great question.
So we can refer to it with the proper noun the whole time.
Right. Yeah, not float around potentially picking the name. We used to be called Index Machines, and the name of the pick and place was the Index.
Pick and place the name.
Right. Yeah. And but we had a cease and desist from a company. It doesn't matter who, but they didn't like our usage of it, so we had to. We didn't have to actually. It was we chose to do something different and not play that game.
I would have chosen the same thing. Steve.
Yeah, like
Probably.
It was a good thing. We did not have to do it. We didn't want to play that game, so we decided we'll change the name. So right now we are going as Opulo. Opulo is a lot of people are like, where the heck is that from? My answer is threefold. It is a 5-letter domain that we managed to get the name. It's not .com. We almost got the .com, but we didn't quite. That we also got the trademark on. It kind of sounds like populate. And like kind of operational, which is very similar to like the kind of thing we're trying to do. And it's not a word. So like, I'm not fighting with any pre-existing notion in anyone's head about like what a word means. You know, like it's just, you hear that word and you're like, oh, all this has ever meant in my brain is this thing Steven's doing. And it works out pretty well.
Well, and as long as people can figure out how to remember how to spell it, you'll have great SEO for that.
Yes.
That was the
And
biggest
so
problem
far
with
it's
the
been
previous
okay.
name of our podcast, because
Really?
you search for the Creativity Podcast and
Yeah.
episodes of other people's podcasts that have a title with creativity in them tend to come up.
Which is part of the reason we change it to Create Invent Podcast, because we felt like that was a little bit more about what we are. You know, even though creativity is obviously part of it, but it's just, you know, we love, like, you know, talking to people who have created something or inventing something like you, Stephen. So
what was the genesis of you guys wanting to change the name? Like, at what point were you like, yeah, this isn't what we want to call it? Was it this SEO thing? Was it like kind of an analysis of what you guys were doing on the podcast, and you're like, this doesn't really fit? What made you make that decision?
that's a good question.
I want to know the answer to this too, because Jeremy said one day to me in Discord, he said, I want to change the name of the podcast. And I said, thank goodness. This is a fantastic idea.
No, I'll be honest, because we came up with this actually before Pat was even on the show. And, you know, I just kind of started thinking like, man, I really don't like telling people this and then have to explain what the Creativity Podcast means. So I feel like it's, you know, you tell people that and it's people probably think it's about juggling or something. And, you know, it's I like juggling. I can juggle, but, you know, it's not about that. That's not what we're about. Whereas Create Invent is more like, you know, more what we're about. I mean, we like, you know, it's artistic expression combined with engineering, I guess. Is that accurate, Pat?
Sounds accurate enough to me.
It's more
and the new title fits a little better with, you know, there've been some people that I've wanted to invite on the show that just didn't really fit didn't seem to fit as well to the old title, and what they do would probably fit better to the new title, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
Great.
So yeah.
Have you had pains with the renaming, like people remembering it or something? Because that's something that that was the biggest thing we were worried about, was like, are people gonna understand the name switch and stuff? And like, have you guys felt any of that?
Well, we're lucky that most of our views come from people subscribed somehow to their audio feed. And that's the worst thing about podcasts is we can't even track most of that, because there's like 18 different places you can pull podcasts down from, and none of them tell you. And even if they do tell you, they tell you downloads, not listens, right? So you have no idea.
So Stephen, you got to be on our podcast, and you may be talking to tens of people, or you may be talking to thousands of people. We really don't know. So
that's interesting. That's kind of cool.
It isn't. I mean, it's. I'm sure it's somewhere in the middle based on the downloads and everything else. But you know, it's. I don't know. It is a frustrating thing about podcasting, because you don't really know.
But you know, the interesting thing, Jeremy, is that we get to talk to people like Stephen while he's just Stephen, and he's obviously going to be the Josef Prusa of pick and place machines. in 5 years, right? So we get to talk to him before he's the Josef Prusa of Pick and Place.
If that happens, you can talk to me then too.
Oh,
Let's do it. I'm ready.
Cool, rock and roll.
that guy's the Stephen Hawes of 3D printers. Is what you mean.
Yes, that's what we will say next time. We'll reverse this.
You guys
We'll
are
flip it upside down.
We should ask Josef Prusa on here and see. We can have a little debate, I guess.
I
be
love
cool.
my Prusa printer.
Yeah. We use a Mini for a lot of our part printing, and like it had a problem with like some part of the extruder jamming or something, but the docks were chef's kiss. I mean, just walk me through exactly what I had to do. Are you having these problems? Yes, I had all of those problems. This is the document for you, and I went through and I did it, and it just patently solved my problem. It was fantastic. So like, and that's I think what you're really getting with them is. You're getting good community, you're getting support, you're getting good documentation. Their Discord has like thousands of people in it, and like everyone's there to help you with it. They've been really good. We use minis for a lot of our part printing. They're fantastic. They're so good.
Yeah, I saw you guys had a Monoprice Maker Ultimate 1, I believe.
I think.
And I'll be honest, the thing that bothers me about the Prusas is the way the gantry is set up. You're a mechanical engineer, so I feel like. To me, something about the way the Monoprice is makes a whole lot more sense to me. However, the Prusa has fantastic support, like you were saying. It is, I don't know, even though in my head I think, I look at that and think, oh, this is better than the Prusa. Just, if you showed me one without any context,
right,
I would think that's awesome. But it's not. That's not all there is to it. It's all the support and stuff that goes along with it.
And
obviously.
it looks so like cantilevered. Like the mini arm is reaching out. And when I first saw it, I was like, that thing looks like it's
terrifying.
Not gonna be very rigid. But I mean, sure enough. I also think even if you have a little kink to it, they do all the bed probing. Their Marlin build is so cheeky and so smart that like. The first layers are always beautiful. It really, like, they definitely have calibrated out the differences in software pretty well to the point that, they can get away with it, and it works pretty great. But, yeah, that freaked me out, too. When I saw that, I was like, wow, that thing's going to wobble, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's, I guess things are not always as they, I guess you have a certain, conception of things as just looking at it. It's not always what it is, I guess.
Sure, yeah.
But I guess all that being said, these 3D printers go into actually making your pick and place machine. Your kit, it's I believe it's listed for $14.95, but then you 3D print the printed parts yourself. Correct? Is that
the kit is $11.45? It's just
$11.45. I don't know why. I don't know where I read. Maybe
it was. We had early birds for when we launched that were just under 1,000, and then after we sold out of those early birds, the price went up to our standard, and it should be $11.45 on the website. Last I checked. If it's not, then I'm gonna go change that.
It is $11.45 on the website. I'm checking right now.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a kit that you print. We call it the BYOP. So instead of bring your own bottle, it's bring your own printer, and you print all the parts yourself. It's just about one spool of filament, just a little under one spool. So $20 in plastic. You get the kit, you print all the parts out. All the docs walk you through how to put it together, and then you have your very own pick and place. You can assemble boards, and we support parts down to 0603, but we've done internal testing with 0402s. That have gone really well.
And 0603, just to define that, what is the dimensions on that? 0603 means?
That's a really common part size for passives or resistors or capacitors. When you put those on a board, they come in these tiny little rectangles. And 0603 is, that's a Freedom Units thing, isn't it? It's 0.06, is it 60 thou? I'm not good with imperial units. I only know metric.
I think you're right. I think it's 60 thousandths by 30 thousandths or 0.06 by 0.03 inches.
Yeah. I think that's what it is. And so we support down to that for the kit, and then we also have 0402s, which are 40 thou by 20 thou. And those we don't officially support it, but it works pretty well. We've run a lot of tests with it. We haven't completely validated it yet where we feel comfy saying that it supports it, but it can do it. And if you think about it, a 3D printer, the nozzle on a 3D printer gets incredibly precise, definitely down to getting to those tolerances.
Easily.
It makes sense that, we're using very similar hardware to an off-the-shelf FDM machine. It's doing a very similar thing. So, Atraxic can do that.
Right. Wow, it's just amazing. And you can buy one of these right now. I mean, if I went to your website, I could get one shipped to me. Is that
exactly? So
correct?
right now we have a 6-week lead time because we raised a little money last year, and that was really helpful for us getting some stock in house and doing validation that we know for sure this thing works. We used it to populate its own motherboards and ring lights. So we actually used it in production for 2 months to test and make sure, okay, this is the thing we feel comfortable selling, and that we had kits that we could actually ship. You always hear about big 3D printer Kickstarters and sometimes they don't ship because they didn't plan ahead. We didn't want to do it that way. We wanted to make sure that before we took anyone's money, we had stuff to ship and we knew it was a working good product. So we had about 100 units in stock, and that was the early birds. And then now that we know what the demand is and we're getting orders in, and we know now we can reorder for the second batch. So we have a running 6-week lead time, but we're going to crush that hopefully pretty soon and get it down to a week or 2 weeks or something along those lines.
Oh, well, that's awesome. Now, is it the company? Is just you? I know it's you and your partner, right? Lucian. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then do you have any employees, or is anybody else working with you guys?
As of this recording, technically no, but if we did this in a week, the answer would be probably yes. We have
That's
a couple
awesome.
other people that are probably coming on, depending on whether or not I have a certain email in my inbox. Maybe there's already one that already has accepted. But we have someone coming on to help with docs and GitHub stuff and support. And then we're also hiring manufacturing technicians to actually help us put the kits together, to run the pick and place, because me sitting there all day doing that, while it is pretty automated and I can get a lot of work done at the same time, I need to be able to move around and do other things too. So we need help getting all that stuff running. But yeah, so we'll be, hopefully in a couple of weeks, we'll be 4 people.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
I guess with this, just thinking about having gone through a Kickstarter and fulfilled some stuff and everything, it seems like there's a huge difference between designing something and actually shipping something. It's to me, just having learned all this, it's almost like the difference between designing something and designing a process for making it. Do you feel like that's accurate when you're in your company?
100%. I mean, the machine has seen some changes over the past few months and little optimizations as we've been using it, but the fundamental structure of the thing has been very similar, because what the work has been over the past few months is getting these kits ready to ship. It's been writing documentation. Sure, I can look at that machine and put it together, but getting all of that information into someone else's mind, and it's also very hard because it's impossible to not make assumptions about what other people are going to know, because it's in my head. It's hard to separate out the things that I shouldn't expect someone else might be able to just intuitively know. Realizing what those are is really hard. It takes time. So it's an entirely different thing. The machine was in a pretty good state, but actually getting it to the point where it's ready to go out the door, where we feel comfortable supporting it, where it's reliable and the user experience of it is good, and crossing all those bridges is holistically different. It is a completely different thing, but a great challenge. And it's been so fun figuring out how to do that. Completely different, but a blast figuring out those challenges.
I love your enthusiasm. Now, before you did this, before you went out on your own, did you work in manufacturing or anything like that? Do you have any background on that?
Yeah. So when I first got out of college, I worked at a company here in Pittsburgh actually called Deep Local. And really cool company. They're effectively an ad agency, but instead of making billboard and TV ads, they built prototypes like robots. So I worked there, and so a great example is for Netflix. We made is a little wooden box with a red button on the top, very nondescript. And you press the button, and it silences your phone, dims your lights, turns on your TV, opens Netflix, and orders a pizza to your house. So all that just happens when you press the button. And we didn't sell any of them, but we did a social media marketing campaign for it, and it got billions of social media impressions, and Netflix paid us to make that. So I worked there for 2 years, and I built crazy robots and went to Japan and India and China and showing them at conferences and trying to fix stuff, all kinds of crazy stories from that job. But I was working 110 hours a week, and I didn't have time to go grocery shopping and call my mom. Poor thing, I didn't talk to her for months at a time. And it was really fun, and I learned a lot. But so I learned how to make one thing really quick there. And then I worked at Formlabs, the resin 3D printing company.
Nice.
Actually, Lucian and I both did. Lucian and I met at UConn, but I was talking on the phone with him. I'm like, Deep Local has me burnt out. And he's like, come work at Formlabs. I just started working here. So we worked there together for 2 years. And that wasn't make one thing quick. That was make a lot of things well. I was actually on the sustaining engineering team. So products that had already shipped, I was on the team to help figure out how do we make sure that they're doing well? How do we fix problems in the field? All that kind of stuff. So I got a really good range.
Amazing. That's amazing experience for what you're doing now. I mean, I'm sure that just plugs right into designing a process for making sure that every one of your kits is good and ready to go.
Totally. Yeah.
I'm happy, so happy to hear that, to be honest, because that sounds, well, I mean, because it's obviously you're enthusiastic, but it just seems like having that experience and knowing somewhat what you're getting into as far as quality control and everything else. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Does everyone
great.
at Formlabs learn how to make the baseball bats with the shotgun shells?
Talking about Shane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I worked with him a bit while I was there. We were both there at the same time for a while. Also, Shane, myself, and my boss at Formlabs, his name is Jake Misra. He also has a YouTube channel, and we bonded a little bit over that when we first started together, and we've been friends since. So
awesome.
yeah, there is a bit of a trend. A lot of Formlabs people have YouTube channels.
It's true.
Yeah. But yeah, it was great. I'm like, it was pretty intentional too. Like, I always knew I wanted to start a hardware company. I knew I always wanted to do this. So going from the prototyping experience, then going to the Formlabs mass production kind of experience, I knew I was getting kind of a pretty good spread of what does it mean to make a prototype? What does it mean to support it in production? Lucian was a manufacturing engineer at Formlabs, so he knows about how do you keep a line running? How do you, issue a CAPA to a manufacturer if there's a problem with the part and all kinds of stuff. He's so good at sourcing and handling the manufacturing side. So together we make a pretty good team from our experience. It's been a lot of fun. It's been really cool. And he's my best friend, like being able to do it with my best friend has just been nothing but great.
That's fantastic. That's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Pat says it more than me, but yeah, I think that is fantastic. That's awesome. Yeah, so the machine itself, to me, if I saw this machine knowing nothing about it, I would think it was a CNC router,
right?
To be honest,
Yeah.
But it uses kind of the same sort of. It's got like a track, and it's basically has a head that goes back and forth and picks up the parts from a reel of components. I assume.
Yep.
Okay.
Now I saw you have some really cool part feeders to move the spools. I thought that was pretty cool.
Do. Yeah.
And I was confused. I watched your most recent video where you were showing, how you run the machine in production today to dog food and make your own. You're eating your own dog food and making your own motherboards for the. Yeah. And I was amazed. I don't know why I'm so simple that I didn't realize this, Stephen. But you don't need to automate the reels. You could string them out manually. And when they run out, you feed more. I had no idea you could do anything like that.
You can do that, and it works great. And like the time it takes me, I did the math out early on. Like if I run it on the Lumen, which is the new name for the pick and place, the LumenPNP. If I run a motherboard on a LumenPNP and versus doing it by hand, it's like 11 and a half times faster or something to run it on the machine. And that's with the strip feeders, the ones you're talking about where you just kind of pull the tape into the build area of the machine and it can pick from it. We have working prototypes of feeders, and I'm actually working aggressively on them right now because it makes the machine so much more hands-off, less work to keep it running. That's where a lot of the innovation comes in with a pick and place is the feeders. So we've had working prototypes for months and months and months, but we had to get the kits out first to, have people have them. And now we're working on doing feeders. So it's still really fast doing it like this, but feeders make it a lot smoother,
Because I feel like, to be honest, I mean, not just your machine, but any sort of pick and place machine, it just seems like the material handling of picking that part up is really, that's got to be just such a pain. I guess honestly, I don't understand how companies do it so well. I mean, it's
well, Jeremy, if you watch Stephen's videos, you'll see how they do it so well because all this magical cameras and computer vision and stuff, Stephen, it's tremendous. how
Yeah,
this works.
and also to give credit where credit is due, the software that we use is called OpenPNP, and it's made by a fantastic human being by the name of Jason Vanita, and he makes this software that effectively supports any pick and place you want to throw at it. So we have a whole profile for our machine that works with it, and it handles doing all the computer vision stuff. We've made like a profile that works really well, but he's the genius behind all that stuff. We have the hardware that supports working with that software, but he's a brilliant dude, and it's a really cool piece of software.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how does it actually put the because when you assemble parts, and we're talking about surface mount parts, you have to put some solder paste on it, which actually gets melted, and then it gets secured to it. How does your machine, does it have like a different head for the solder?
The paste.
Solder.
Yeah, solder paste.
The paste.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right now we use a stencil separate from the machine.
A stencil. Okay.
But we did prototyping a year ago about having an automated paste extrusion head that will just put it out directly. And we're exploring that over the next few months about like, is that going to be better than making a separate desktop machine that does a stenciling squeegee process? Because you can get a stencil very cheap. They're very precise. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel if that works well, and you can have that also be automated. But we've had really good results with paste extrusion with a little auger head.
Okay.
So that also, what that really lets us do is we can have a hopper of all your PCBs to the left side of the machine. And then it brings in a panel into the build area. The head automatically puts the paste down. The other head, because there's two nozzles on the head, that puts all the parts down, and then it spits it out the other side. So then it's completely hands-off. You don't need to move it from one machine to another. It just pulls it from a hopper, pastes, place, and kicks it out the other side. So that's what we really want to accomplish. If we could do that with the paste head, that would be fantastic. That's what we're shooting for.
Okay. No, but I mean that makes sense though, because you have with a paste head, or you could have an automated kind of squeegee operation. So you're kind of debating between the two right now. Is that kind of your process?
We're
right
exploring both of those avenues. It seems like the paste extrusion is going to fit pretty well into the ecosystem of how this whole thing is going to work, because right now we still have pick and place, and we're working on fully assembled machines and feeders and all that stuff's coming down the line. But we want to be able to facilitate all of the what we call mid-scale manufacturing, so like making 5 to 5,000 a year kind of quantity. Every tool or machine that you need to be able to facilitate that for PCBAs, and eventually down the road, other things in that same scale. But so that means the oven, like how are you reflowing these things? How are you getting the paste on there? Like a solution for this whole process, because it's not clean right now. There isn't anything that's out there that's really great that I wanted when I did a Kickstarter a few years ago. I wish I had a tool like this. So we're trying to create things that help fill that gap a little bit, whatever that may be, whatever can help make that process easier.
When you did that Kickstarter, did you fulfill everything yourself? I mean, did you?
Yeah.
Ooh, man, that was. I'm sure that was not.
You did all those
That had to
surface
get old
mount
after a
LEDs
while.
yourself by hand.
Yeah, I did. It was like over 3,000 SMT components by hand for all the orders. And I just like put on some podcasts, and I was there in my apartment, like hand placing and putting them in my little toaster oven. And like, it was dreadful. But I could do that literally. I could do it in like a day, 2 days, maybe max with the machine that I have here.
Okay.
But it took me like months of nights and weekends hand doing it. It was dreadful.
Well, that does sound dreadful.
Yeah.
Stephen is way better at soldering than either of us are.
I got good at the end of that.
Yeah, I watch you in your videos where you solder down some big surface mount chips, like some big STM chips and stuff. I said, well, yeah, I think I could. What he's doing, I could do that. But boy, my hands are so much shakier than yours, and I know how much effort I would have to put in to do it. I'm so glad PCB Way will do it for me.
The trick is you just have a banana right before, and you get that extra little bit of potassium, and then your hand can stay a little bit more steady. I heard that somewhere, and like, I like peanut butter banana sandwiches anyway, so I usually have them around. So if I'm about to do some soldering, I'll just pop a banana in. I guess it works pretty well.
Like that really
That's
helps?
what I hear. I'm
You're
sure
gonna
it's
find
the
out
placebo
next time,
effect.
Jeremy.
Right, yeah.
Yeah,
Jeremy's gonna be buying bananas now.
yeah, for sure. So yeah.
Stephen, I have a little product that me and my friend are working on.
Okay.
These little NeoPixel
Ooh,
little
cool.
rings. I mean,
Nice.
we've got a big one. I've got this big board
Whoa.
with an
Rock and
ESP82.
roll.
This is cool, but this got really expensive. We started this before the pandemic, and the pricing was fantastic. And then the pandemic happened, and this is just not. We were going to add a third. This fits in a 5 1/4 inch drive bay on a computer, so it's going to be for status. But I have the tiny one.
That's so cool. I love that.
Thank you. I have the tiny one on my JC Pro macro pad doing. It has a ring on the outside showing me disk usage. There's little pixels of different colors spinning around for uplink and downlink and stuff.
Yeah.
But this I could make these on your pick and place machine.
Easy. Are those the 5050 dot stars?
They're the 2020 2812s.
Those are 2812s. Yeah, it could do that all day.
Yeah. Now,
and I guess that.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Well, that's one question I had. His his LEDs they are circumferentially or they're rotated. So your pick and place will do that as well as it'll do it in an XY orientation and it'll also rotate it however you want it.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, actually, it's pretty cool. On the nozzle, it has a stepper motor where the shaft is hollow. And we actually pull the vacuum through the center of the shaft. Ooh. So as the shaft rotates, it's pulling a vacuum through that, and then the nozzle's on the end. And we actually have it tapped on either side of that hollow shaft. So we just tap in. I think it's M5 threads on both sides. And yeah, it'll pick it up. It'll move it over the camera. It'll see, oh, okay, it's at this orientation. It was a little wiggled in the tape, so let me move it 0.7 degrees. And then after it knows that, it'll place it. So it can handle that all day.
Wow, that is incredible. So sorry, I jumped into your question though, Patty.
It fits. It's fine. But what I've been trying to puzzle out is where in the scale I would want to use your machine instead of having PCB, because we had PCBWay do these.
Sure.
And I want to say I'm going to get these numbers and I should also mention this is going to be open source. We haven't figured out what license yet, but
cool,
because I don't know what licenses to use for hardware. But
yeah, that's a whole thing in and of itself.
It really is. I want to say these were like $9 or $12 each when we ordered 20 of them.
Okay.
With the LED, and they overcharged us for the LEDs, but I didn't complain because it wasn't going to be cheap enough anyway. But my friend who designed the board, he said that if we spend like $2,500 on them, I'm afraid to say this out loud because I don't want people to be mad when I have to charge $10 a board for how much they cost to make. But he said they'd be like $2.60 a board to make, and that's pretty much nothing. So, but we have to spend $2,500 on a big. It's a lot of sales you have to get because this is only a time. For three, it's 1,000 of them, right? And that's so. What? I'm not sure I understand what my question is. Even
I think I know where you're going for. Like, at what point does that stop in this machine come in?
Where between 20 and 2,000 little tiny boards would I be wanting to do this by hand? Not by hand, but with your machine in my house, in my garage.
Sure. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on how many sales do you know you have. Like, let's say you have 2,500 people that tell you that they want them already. Yeah, just if you can get them at that price. Automate, just buy them. For us, we didn't know if we were going to get 5 orders or 500 on the first day. So it didn't make sense for us. And our board has a lot of stuff on it. And the bill of materials, especially with the chip shortage, is not cheap. And we couldn't afford to get it over tripled our cost to make our board. So it was just completely infeasible. We couldn't sell it if we got it manufactured at the quantity that we could afford. So it has to do with how many do you know you're going to sell? How much money are you willing to put into it? Do you want to be able to have really tight revision control? Because you place this order and you get 1,000 of them. If you find you have a PCB bug, and when you start making those first few, you're kind of stuck with that. But if you have this machine, you can get the board spun real quick and then just put in a different pick and place file and off you go. You also are not trusting another facility to do your assembly. I've heard people, you guys familiar with the DEF CON badge life? Kind of people that make the crazy badges.
I have a good friend that goes to DEF CON every year and takes his badges that he makes.
Cool.
It's awesome.
Yeah, there's some really interesting talks about, I think Kerry Scharfglass from Hackaday has a couple great talks about how he's going and trying to like go to a PCB fab, like an assembly house. And, there was some miscommunication and he got like 150 boards back with a diode reverse. So he's in his Las Vegas hotel room, reverse soldering all these diodes. And if you can run it in-house, check it, verify it, and then just let it run, you are able to verify it as soon as it comes off the line and catch any issues as soon as they come off. So it's not just a fiscal consideration, and it could or could not be beneficial to get an at-home pick and place. Like, it depends on your situation. But if you want control of your product, like if we want to uprev the motherboard for some reason, we can do it tomorrow. We don't have to wait for anyone else. We just do it. And it's super. We actually did this. We found a better resistor value for our vacuum sensing circuit on it. We just made the change the next day, immediately changed it. And you can't do that when you fab it out of house. So there's a few reasons, but it really just does depend. It depends on the cash flow. It depends on how much control you want over the process. It's a lot of different things to consider for it.
I'm more than a little tempted.
Yeah, it's a whole.
I have to confess, I'm more than a little tempted.
I mean, I feel like even from a manufacturing standpoint, it's almost the difference between a mass manufacturing model. You order 1,000 of these versus a lean manufacturing model where you're correcting the problems as they come up. Just going back to that I think that's really fantastic.
It's kind of how a lot of people say you can ship an MVP of software really easily, because you just open an AWS instance and just ship a thing, and it's online, and you can just try it out immediately. With hardware, there's so much more you need to do to even get to the MVP. And most people, they have to raise a bunch of capital. They have to go and get their product mass manufactured and get injection molding dies. And if you can do that at home and test it out first, validate it, and build a moderate quantity first, you don't have to break the bank to spend that huge cost to get it made at a contract manufacturer or something.
Yeah.
And
how bummed out will I be if I have a box of $2,500 worth of these little lights in my closet that nobody wants? It would be a real bummer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'll buy one.
I will too.
What if I have $2,478 worth of little
I may not buy one at that point.
Yeah.
I buy some, but I won't buy them all.
Yeah, but you guys know what I mean. It would be nice to not have to. It'd be nicer to have a spool of NeoPixels in the closet and some unused PCBs, and maybe just, whatever that dollar figure would be.
Yeah, that is true.
Sure.
Instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, listen, guys. I think we're got a pretty good stopping place. Maybe we can do a little coffee break. When we come back, we had some questions from somebody on Discord. I don't know if he wants his name.
I'll read his name. He designed my lights. Our lights. I shouldn't say mine.
Okay.
He's involved too. It's not a.
Really, we're going to ask him about his wrist-mounted flamethrower, so I think you want to stay tuned for that. I know Stephen does some quadcopter stuff, and
does he really?
We've got a bunch of other
that was
questions
what I
that we'll
wanted
ask
to
him.
ask. Because I saw a whole bunch of radios in the background of one of your videos, and I said, I'm going to ask Stephen what he flies over there.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, we'll be back in just a minute. Hey guys, welcome to the coffee break, where we take a break and drink coffee, presumably, and we give a shout out to people who support us on Patreon. Our top 5 Patreons. I put 4. Gotta hit the thumb in there. Unless you have an extra pinky, as we discussed at one point.
We did do that.
Yeah. So our top 5 Patreons, we've got Carl, Michael Sizer, Raptor, creatively spelled, of course, Christina Kearney, Stuart Morrow, Positive Waves, and we'll even throw in Brian Moses. That's what is that?
That's 5.
7?
That's more than 5.
That's 5. That's more than a handful. So thank you so much for your support.
Jeremy, you can find us if you want to be a patron. You can go to patreon.com/createinvent, all one word.
That's right, all one word. Even though it's create/invent that we don't pronounce, it's actually patreon.com/createinvent. So the slash is actually at the beginning. Interesting.
It's true. And we very much appreciate anyone on Patreon who's helping us pay for these little expenses that we have. There are actual expenses to recording a podcast besides our time, and we very much appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. And if you want to give us a comment on YouTube or SoundCloud or however else you listen to this, because we're not even sure how you're listening to this sometimes. So
it's true.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll get you back to the show right now.
Right now.